Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Kim and I have been teaching Yin Yoga for a bit now, and I'm excited for you to join me in this moment on your mat. Go ahead and grab yourself a mat or at least a easy place for you to be able to lie down and stand up a little bit for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, moving through several breathing and physical movement exercises. As you find yourself a space to be, gather any yoga props that you use, such as a bolster or blocks or an eye pillow. Or if yoga props are not something you currently have around you, gather a few pillows off of your bed or your couch and add a blanket underneath where your knees will be, as we will have a few hands on our knees and knees on the ground poses. Yin Yoga is a practice of moving intentionally through different movements without necessarily expecting any level of flexibility, physical fitness, or any of the things that you have as preconceived notions about what yoga might be. Those don't apply here. Any version of the pose is the pose. And if you've taken a class with me before, you've often heard me say that phrase, as well as noticing that when we find ourselves in two-sided poses, one side might be very different than the other. That's because your body isn't as symmetrical as maybe you would think or hope or expect or Instagram could lead you to believe. We each live our days and our lives moving through the motions of what we're expected to do. Some of those motions allow different parts of our body to be strained or stressed in different ways than others. Sometimes that varies day to day, hour to hour, or season to season. As you find yourself moving through postures tonight that include two sides, please remember not to judge yourself, not to have expectations that are unreasonable for yourself, and also not to push yourself to a sense of pain. Throughout Yin Yoga, I instruct classes to kind of ride the wave of sensation. And what I mean by that is if you were to rate sensation on a scale of 0, meaning exactly maybe how you feel right now, where nothing's exacerbated, nothing's stretched too much, you're just kind of here, to a scale of pain, if we wanted to give pain the number 10. We never want to get to pain. We never want to experience pain, and we never want to cause ourselves pain just for this purpose of growing. We might want to cause ourselves to move into sensation, to notice discomfort, and to notice what it can be like to sit with discomfort and ask it what it has to teach us. So find yourself maybe at about a 6, where 6 is sensation. Maybe you're looking to move a little bit deeper, so you move into a 7, but never really move yourself past there, because then you're bordering on the edge of pain, strain, and pushing yourself for the sake of pushing yourself, rather than sitting at that growth edge. So go ahead and find yourself in a comfortable seat or lying down if you haven't already. For tonight's class, as I briefly mentioned in our introduction, I'm going to have us start with legs up the wall without the wall. And so the way that I like to cue us into this, actually, we will start. Apparently, we're going to remix this and start with 3 minutes of just grounding into where we're seated with our companions here. And so our first pose will be legs up the wall, but get yourself into a comfortable seat with anyone or any props you'd like to add joining in with you. And just begin to not change anything about what you're doing unless you want to, but just notice where you are. And what I mean by that could be looking around the room and being aware of anything in your room that maybe you haven't paid attention to, paying attention to the temperature of the room, how your body is feeling temperature wise. I notice on my mat where I have it seated at home here is right in front of a heater. So my back is always quite warm in this pose, which feels great. And then begin to notice things that are closer to you. So maybe that's noticing pets that are joining you and how they are experiencing you sitting in their play area. Maybe it's noticing the mat underneath you and what it feels like to be seated on the ground. Maybe it's noticing
any sounds that are close by. Just begin to come into this space in this moment and ask yourself why you chose to take this time for yourself. Just silently think to yourself, why am I here doing this today, right now? And also ask yourself, what do I want to get from this? Is there anything emotionally or physically that I'm looking to let go of, to stretch, to release? Or maybe you simply just needed a break because you've been busy with your day, busy with your week, and busy with other people. And so I'll be quiet for about 2 minutes here as we just let ourselves both fully come into this space, ponder on those questions. And during these 2 minutes, I want you to begin to notice your breath as well, noticing the most innermost thing that's closest to you. In any way that makes sense to you, just pay attention to what it physically feels like to inhale and what it physically feels like to exhale. Tonight, we might ride through some emotions, but I think it's important as we move from the day into this space to just begin to first notice our physical experience and let the emotions come as they do. So focus on why you're here, what you want from this, and your breathing for a couple minutes, and then I'll guide us into our first pose. And if you feel any urges to move during this time, shaking out your neck or your shoulders, always feel free. But I find that stillness can really connect me into the space I need to be here. And if you haven't already begun intentionally focusing on your breath, we'll just take 3 breaths together. And so take an inhale breath through your nose and fill yourself up as much as you can with air. Maybe sipping a tiny bit more when you get to the top. And then open your mouth gently and just sigh out your exhale. Maybe you notice as you do that, your shoulders drop a little bit. We'll do that 2 more times. Inhaling deeply through our nose, maybe feeling our chest puff up, our belly expand. Pausing for just a moment and open your mouth and exhale. Once more, inhale, filling yourself up. This time, maybe notice what your upper back feels like as you have this full inhale. And then open your mouth and exhale it out. Let yourself just fully sink down into the ground. And before we move, Take a moment and just notice what it feels like to be fully sunken into the ground after 3 exhale sighs as you can. And see if you can kind of imprint this feeling of feeling fully just seated, grounded, maybe even with your eyes closed and just connected. And at any time tonight during the class that you find your mind wandering, you find your heart rate racing or speeding up, or your breath getting more shallow, see if you can come back to this feeling right here. Always feeling free to take an exhale breath to just release anything else that you'd like to release, and see if you can come back to this experience. And so, to move into waterfall pose, also known as legs up the wall without the wall, what we're going to do is shift anything that is on us out of the way, and then grab your bolster if you don't already have it, you're seated on it. And we are going to do something similar to what we did before to get into supported bridge. And so I like to have the bolster sideways on my mat, and then just sit up on it. And you might want blocks nearby. I'm not sure. It kind of depends on what your body needs today. I'm going to grab mine just in case because I have been feeling kind of stiff today. And once you have yourself seated on your bolster, just begin to walk your hands back behind you, beginning to just shift backwards from sitting upward, and then come down onto your elbows. We're coming into what looks like bridge pose. Oh, it's not where we're staying. But then you'll lie your back all the way back down, curl your knees into your chest, maybe shift. I'm going to need to shift my hips a little bit forward so that my lower back is on the bolster. And it's a kind of an awkward pose to get into. And then basically where we go is we just straighten our legs up towards the ceiling. At first, my hamstrings and everything else in my legs are always very, very tight. But the goal here is to kind of get our legs straight where we're imagining that our feet are walking on the ceiling above us. And I had a teacher recently encourage us to actually pretend that we were walking on the ceiling for a few paces if you notice that your legs are super stiff. If they're walking on the ceiling or riding a bike or something like that. But just let your legs be up. Let your lower back and seat be supported. Sometimes I like to hold on to the sides of my bolster here. And just notice what it feels like to be in this position, grounded in a different way, opposite from how we spend most of our day. And just settle here. We'll be here for a couple minutes. If you find yourself feeling unbalanced and this isn't relaxing, and feel free to curl your knees in and just hug them into your chest and just be on your back. But just allow this to re-regulate anything in your body that this re-regulates. It's different for each of us throughout each day. You can even point and flex your toes. Curl them in towards you. Just settle in. And come into this space of rest through intentional movement. Maybe you have furry friends join you. Just let them rest with you if they choose to. And as we're here, if you struggled to connect emotionally in the first pose, I'll invite you just to revisit those questions of why are you here and what are you hoping to get from this? Always remembering that I don't know is a completely okay answer because you're still here doing the thing. And that's 80% of doing the thing, showing up. We'll be here just another minute longer. But where we're going from here will be just a happy baby with our lower back lifted. So know that that's where we're going. Allow this to offer anything else it has to offer tonight. Maybe for just a breath, you want to even curl your toes in towards your face and move your feet back towards your head just to see what that stretch feels like if you're looking for any sense of stretch across your legs. And then when you're ready, just begin to bend your knees, curling your knees in towards your chest. And then you can either grab onto each knee, or maybe you can reach the outsides of your feet and come into happy baby with our pelvis lifted more than it typically is in this posture. And see how that feels. If you want to rock side to side, if you want to stretch one leg at a time, just let this version of this pose do what it's doing and enjoy it for just a minute. It can feel really nice to be curled in this way. And then when you feel like you've gotten what you would like from that, we are going to move to supported bridge pose. Just letting go of your feet, moving your hands back to your knees, and then guiding your feet down towards the floor on the opposite side of your bolster, not adjusting anything, just allowing the soles of your feet to find the mat. Maybe you want to windshield wiper your knees side to side once they do. And then this is one option for supported bridge, is just staying exactly like this. Or maybe you want to stretch out one leg or both legs and see how that feels on your lower back and across the front of your legs and hips. If you'd like to do one at a time, I will let us know when we're halfway through so you can switch. Let's see how this feels. Adjust in any way that you need. Place your hands either on your body, outstretched to the side, or outstretched above you. Depending upon the way in which you stretch your arms, can add a bit of a heart opener to this posture, which maybe sometimes is something we want, sometimes is something we want to avoid, and sometimes the things that we want to avoid are the things that we might need to lean into just a little bit. So ask yourself what you need and take it, and then settle in here. I notice in this posture when I am having a day with either personal or anxiety around me, I kind of feel this little fluttering in this posture. Because for me, it can be really vulnerable to have an upward facing pose that adds in a hip stretch. So if you notice that, it might be helpful to take a few of those really deep breaths and sigh out through your mouth. And sometimes just the act of placing my hands on my belly and paying attention to my breath allows those nerves to calm. Other times they're doing what they do and I sit with it the best I can. And we're about halfway through this posture. So if you would like to switch anything up, go ahead and make that change. Doing our best to do things symmetrically if we take one side at a time. And as we come into the final few breaths here, just come back to your breath and back to your body. If you have your legs stretched out, go ahead and bring both soles of the feet back to the mat, with your knees up towards the ceiling. And just windshield wiper, wave them side to side, beginning to prepare to move. And where we're going next is going to be caterpillar pose, which is a seated forward fold. And so how we're going to get there, by not necessarily doing anything too active, is just by bringing your knees back up, curling them into your chest is one way. Obviously, you can choose your own transitions. And then the way I like to get into this is to kind of wiggle myself side to side until I'm rolling back off of my bolster. And then once I get off of it enough, I just like to shift it, grabbing the sides of it so that I'm fully flat back on the mat, and stay there for just a moment, and then roll over to the side and press myself up when I'm ready into a seat. And once you find yourself in a seat, I'm going to shift towards the camera, but where we're going is just to, from our seat, choose whichever direction you would like to face, stretch your legs out long in front of you, this time not straight up in the air, but just out in front of you, stretched out, shifting side to side as you need. And then I like to do this with a bolster, just because it allows my face something to ground on. It's an option. But we're going to take an inhale breath and notice what it feels like to just be seated up again. Notice what the backs of our legs feel like, what our back feels like, what it feels like to reorient, allow our body to adjust, moving slowly. And then taking an inhale breath, I like to inhale and raise my arms up towards the ceiling to really feel what my sides feel like to stretch. And then on an exhale, we're just going to tilt forward as far as your body would like to go. Maybe you want to reach to your feet. Maybe you want to place your hands on either side of your legs. I like to add a bolster on top of my legs and allow my chest to kind of fall onto that. And then from there, depending on how I'm feeling, I add a block to catch my forehead. And keeping your legs straight is an option, but it's also an option to bend your knees so that you can fold forward more and get more of a stretch across your back if you would like. Just beginning to slowly shift from positions on our back facing up to positions where we're facing down, and allow your body the time it needs to catch up. After this, we will move into a butterfly forward fold as well. So know that that is coming. I will give us the option to do that one leg at a time or both. So we'll have extended time there. Another thing I like to do when I'm feeling anxious and coming to a yin restorative class is sometimes I use my fingertips to kind of just trace along the sides of my legs. I'm sure there is some science as to what that does to my nervous system, but I know it works. Similar to kind of similar things of EFT tapping. Just helps my nerves to calm down, helps me to reconnect to my body, and allows me to remember that this is the time that I'm choosing to pause, to be in my body, and to be with my breath. Whatever comes will come. And if you have your forehead on a block, sometimes it can feel nice to roll it side to side, massaging your forehead and space between your eyebrows. So we can hold a lot of tension in our face, our forehead, and our jaw, and our neck. So just let that all release. Let something soften. And take a breath. And on the exhale, go ahead and place your hands on either side of your legs, of your body, of your props. And just find your way back to upright seated in whatever way makes sense to you. Some people like to imagine themselves uncurling. Some people just like to move. But take an inhale and guide yourself up. And from here, where we're going to go is butterfly forward fold, which you might already be primed for. I took a class recently where they had us do this while sitting on a block. And so I am going to try that tonight for myself. And if you would like to, what I did in that class was just kind of sit on the block and then curl in one leg. And then do exactly what we just did. If you would like to take this from regular butterfly with both legs, you can adjust your feet as close to your body or as far away as you would like. And just use your exhale breath to guide yourself back down. I will let us know when it's been a couple minutes if you'd like to change anything. And as you find yourself settling, other places in your body that you might want to bring attention to are noticing how your back and your sides feel. Depending upon the type of fold that you're doing, maybe you notice more of a stretch on one side of your back than the other. Or maybe you don't want to pay attention at all to anything specific and you want to just be here. Everything I offer is simply an invitation. You know your body best and take what you need. We are halfway through the time I've set aside for this pose. And so if there are any adjustments that you would like to make, feel free. I'm going to be switching which leg is out. So I'll just walk my hands back up, pause at the top, and then I'll be curling my left leg in, extending my right leg out, still seated on the block, which allows just an extra stretch I notice across my back. And then taking an inhale in the pause, and exhale, guiding myself down, allowing myself to round over and drop in, returning to my breath, returning to what I'm feeling. Maybe at this point in the class, we start to notice how we're emotionally feeling. For me, it takes about 20 minutes or so into a class for emotions that I've pushed aside from my day to begin to rise up. And so if you experience that, always remember to sit with that, of course. But if you are struggling to stay focused or wanting to move, taking an inhale breath, taking an open mouth exhale breath can help. Or just do whatever feels intuitively useful for you to honor how you're feeling and to honor your choice to take this time between whatever has been and whatever will be. All we can control right now is where we are. And so take an inhale breath and let that exhale go in whatever way makes sense for you. Taking our final breath in this posture, preparing to move out of it. Where we're going next will be tabletop with a few cat cows on our way to pigeon pose. And so thinking to yourself how interested you are in movement, knowing that that's the transition I have guided for us. And then begin to press your hands down, uncurl your spine, and guide yourself back upright. I'm going to bring my right leg in so that both my legs are in. Let the snaps, crackles, and pops happen. And just be seated, pausing here, paying attention to how you feel. And then guiding yourself onto your hands and knees into a tabletop position as you feel makes sense. I'm going to lift up off my block. I keep a blanket here in the center of my mat for my knees. And so out stretching your legs out, windshield wipering them, bouncing them, just moving for a brief moment. I like to have a bolster here for myself for restorative yin pigeon pose. So maybe you want to have that near the top of your mat. But just find yourself on your hands and knees here. We'll be staying in that face down, inward focused position, but just briefly having all four parts of our body that are touching the mat really connect with the mat. Notice all 10 of your fingers, all 10 of your toes, both of your knees. And take an inhale breath, drop your belly and look up to the ceiling. And then an exhale breath, arching your spine, looking down towards your belly button. And do this as many times as you would like to do, flowing with your breath, making this as exaggerated or as minimal as you would like, adding in anything to cat-cow that your spine is asking for, which sometimes can look like looking over one shoulder towards one hip. Sometimes it can look like just swaying your hips side to side. Just move intuitively for about a minute, and then we'll return to stillness in pigeon pose, which I'll guide us to, or stay in stillness and just await the cues. I find spinal movement on purpose reminds me some days how much I can move, and reminds me other days how much I did not move throughout that day. Depending on the day I've had, each one of those is a different emotional experience as well. And so when you're ready to move into pigeon pose, just take any final spinal movements that you need. And then you can choose which leg you would like to have forward first. I typically do my right leg, but tonight I'm going to do my left leg first. And so with both your hands planted, I like to walk my hands about a handprint forward, lift up my left knee, move it towards my left wrist, tuck my back right toes, and shift my knee back a little bit, untuck them. And as with this pose, you'll begin to notice compression in your hip of your knee forward, stretching across the front of your hip of your knee back. And add any props that you would like to add under your hips and under your chest. And walk yourself down. And allow yourself to rest and be held by everything supporting you. If I'm feeling especially in need of that support feeling, I like to have a bolster and wrap my arms around it. And then just allow your forehead to be planted down. If you ever experience discomfort that isn't pain in your knee, one cue is just to tuck your back toes back under, and that changes the sensation in your knee. If you don't, feel free to leave them untucked. It's just something I notice sometimes that I like to offer. And as you're ready, we'll begin to plant our hands, walk ourselves up, getting ready to move to the other side. And so to move as gently as possible from one side of pigeon to the other, I like to press both my hands into the mat, tucking my back toe, and just slowly lift that knee back up, back to tabletop briefly, swaying side to side, flowing through cat cow as I need, taking anything that you need as a transition. Maybe that's just stillness. And then this time we'll flow into pigeon on the other side. So from tabletop, this time my right knee will be forward, my left leg will go back. And then adjusting the props, adding any, subtracting any, and then using an exhale to guide yourself down and let yourself be held. As always, in two-sided postures, don't expect your body to be a mirror image. For better or worse, we aren't robots. So while we may look symmetrical, we do not experience everything the exact same way with both sides of our body. So let yourself be okay with having a different experience on one side than the other. Try not to judge yourself. Try not to have unrealistic expectations. It's okay to wonder. It's okay to notice that maybe your neck could benefit from adjusting a computer monitor here and there. But let your body be as it is and be held and supported and rest. And taking as much time as you need here in this pose. Where we are going from here is into a supported wide legged child's pose for a bit. And so when you're ready to move, place both your hands down, lift yourself up, tuck your back toe, and guide that knee in, pressing just enough to bring yourself up to tabletop or up to seated. And then I like to practice wide legged child's pose with a bolster. And so bringing your knees about as wide as your mat, taking an inhale breath, and then exhale, guiding yourself over that bolster, allowing your chest to fully rest on this prop, and placing one ear on the bolster, one side of the face. We'll be here for 5 minutes, so I'll let us know when we're 2.5 minutes in, so you can shift to the opposite ear. But just allow this pose, as all the others, to hold you physically and emotionally. Imagine that you can let anything sink out of your heart into the prop and just let it be held there. Using your next inhale breath, if you'd like to make a change to which side of your face is on the bolster, do so in the next few breaths, and then settle back in. preparing to prepare to move. Come back to your breath, back to your body. And where we're going from here will be our final 2 guided poses, and they'll be on our back. So knowing that we're transitioning from a face down back to our backs. Go ahead and place your hands on either side of your bolster. Use them to guide yourself up, pressing them down, walking them back towards your knees. And then returning once again to a position where our head is up towards the ceiling. Just come back to a seat, shifting to the side, bring your legs out from under you. And notice how this feels. You've been here before, and we'll finish here in a bit. But notice what it's like to be sitting. And then when you're ready, stretch your legs out. And where we're going is to a side stretch, sometimes called crescent moon, sometimes called bananasana. But as always, if you need something else, take something else. Maybe a wide-legged forward fold is calling to you. But I will be headed into bananasana. And so from my legs out in front of me, just be lying myself back, guiding myself down into what will become Shavasana, but first will be a side stretch. So lie yourself fully back on your mat, inviting anyone else who's joining for this pose to join, as Tails joins me here. And find yourself fully lying back on your mat. You can have your legs however they land, your arms however they land. And pause here for a breath to feel your full body flat on the mat in a neutral, natural way. And then before we move into the side stretch, I like to do a full body stretch. So take an inhale breath and lift your arms up above your head, bringing them really long. Maybe point your toes and see how long you can feel. I call this lightsaber pose. If it has a name, I don't know what it is. But just stretch yourself out as full as you can. And then on an exhale, do one of those open mouth sighs of an exhale and let yourself just settle. From here, we will be doing the same thing on each side. And so you can choose which side you start with. I will be starting with stretching my right side. So inhale and lift up my left leg and move it to the left side of my mat, followed by my right leg, leaving the rest of my body where it is, beginning to notice that my right hip is stretched out, my right side body feels a stretch. We'll be moving into a twist later. That's a supine twist with our legs crossed in a figure 4. But for now, I have my legs stretched out fully, and my arms are stretched out fully. Then I bring my left arm to the left side, followed by my right. So I'm kind of in this banana moon-like shape. Nothing is bent at this point. But whatever pose feels good to you here, the purpose of this is just to spend a couple minutes stretching out each side of our body. And so stretching from our toes to our knees to our hips, all across our side and our rib cage. Maybe you even feel a stretch across your shoulder. And we'll just be here for a couple minutes on each side, and then move into our twist and then into Shavasana. Allowing whatever comes to be there. Knowing it's okay to feel strong things. It's okay to sit with hard things. And our breath can guide us through as we sort through things beyond our control. Spending just another minute here in the side stretch. Sometimes I like to cross one ankle over the other. My feet are to one side of the mat. Depending on the day, it stretches different parts of my body. Maybe you want to roll your head side to side on the mat to see if that loosens up any tension in your neck or your shoulders. Maybe you want to stay right where you are. When you're ready, if your legs are crossed, uncross them. Bring both feet back to the center. Stretch your arms back up one more time into that lightsaber, super long lightning bolt pose. Then exhale, settle back down. We'll move to the other side. So I'll be lifting up my right foot, moving it to the right side, left foot following it. And then moving my right arm to the right side, and then creating myself a little banana crescent moon shape with my body stretching out the left side this time. And so again, paying attention to notice what the stretch feels like from your toes to your knees to your hips, from your hips across your ribs and your side body up to your shoulder. Maybe you begin to notice how this feels across your chest and your heart. And then if you've got your arms stretched, maybe you notice what it feels like across your shoulder to your elbow, down to your wrist. With your last minute in this pose on this side, see if you can use your inhale breaths again to return to that sensation of filling up, making space. And then use your exhale to inhabit that space. Sometimes when I experience anxiety, I feel myself almost physically feeling like I'm shrinking, crouching, or curling up, which is natural, normal, and not necessarily unhealthy. But I notice if I don't take time to stretch myself back out, breathe deeply, and re-inhabit the space that's mine to inhabit, I can get stuck. My anxiety can feel like it's controlling me instead of me being in control of me. So let yourself fill up, let yourself settle into that physical space that your breath creates as we inhale deeply and exhale soften. And then if you have your ankles crossed, go and uncross them. Return your feet to the center of your mat. Turn your arms to the center. Stretch out long into a lightning bolt again if you would like to. But where we're going from here will be our twist, which will be our final guided pose before Shavasana. And so, in your own time, bend your knees and plant the soles of your feet on the mat, bringing your knees up to the ceiling. And then windshield wiper your legs side to side. And I like to go into this pose on the similar side to what I did in the previous two-sided pose. So having my knees dropped to the left side first, but you are welcome to choose what you would like. And so if you're joining me in supine twist with eagle legs, what I'll be doing is keeping my left leg planted, lifting up my right leg and crossing it over my left. And then from there, press my left foot down a little bit so I can shift my hips a little bit to the right to have room on my mat. Take an inhale breath, and then drop both my knees over to the left. Coming into this twist, trying to keep both your shoulders planted on the mat as best as you can, with your chest pointed up to the ceiling. And if you haven't felt much of a side stretch in any of the previous poses, probably will here, maybe more of a stretch across your hips as well. And choose to have your arms wherever you would like. You can place them on your body if you'd like. You can stretch them out to the side, up to the top, or somewhere else. Just let yourself find what you need. Let yourself settle in and let yourself wring out anything else that you would like to wring out. As we twist, imagining that we're kind of wringing out the last bits of water from a towel that we're about to hang dry. Allowing anything else emotionally that we would like to surface and work through and release through this class to come up, be acknowledged, and just be here. The hardest part about anxiety for me can be allowing it to exist without taking over and feeling the sense of control over myself in a moment and experience and a sensation in a world that often doesn't feel controllable at all, because it's not. But in those moments, what I remind myself that I can control is choosing to take an inhale breath, choosing to pause with it, and then letting it go. And repeating that as often in any way that I need until I just feel a little bit more present and a little bit more able to do whatever it is I need to do next. Sometimes it works better than others, but it's worth trying. And when you're ready, uncross your legs, but leave them knocked over, dropped over to one side. And then slowly begin to picture yourself moving back to center. And then one leg at a time, if you prefer, guide your knees back up so that both of your knees are pointed up towards the ceiling. Pressing your feet down and shifting your hips back to the center. And either windshield wipering your knees, meaning dropping them to one side and then the other, or bring the soles of your feet to the edge of your mat and let your knees drop in together to the center. Spend a couple breaths there before we move to the other side, letting both sides connect, letting things reset, and taking time between things, not trying to rush anything, being mindful and slowing down. And then when you're ready, with both feet planted, this time I'll be pressing my right foot into the mat, lifting up and crossing my left knee over, shifting my hips a little bit to the left, and then dropping both of my knees over to the right. Ooh. Noticing sensation as you do so, and always feeling free to place props under your knees. That aids in the twist and allows you to settle. Placing your hands wherever you would like. Sometimes I like to place both of my palms together underneath the back of my head and just allow them to cradle the back of my head as I'm here in a twist. This adds a bit of a heart opener, and for me, adds a sensation of rest. I don't always want to stretch. Sometimes I just want to be. But know that this is our last intentional posture before Shavasana. You've made it through, you've made it here. Going ahead and uncrossing your legs and leaving your knees stacked on one side. Taking all the time you need here. And then when you're ready, inhaling, bringing your knees back up to center. And taking any transition that you need. Once you shift your hips back to the center, maybe you want to windshield wiper the knees again, side to side. Maybe you want to curl your knees into your chest or come into happy baby before we stretch out to Shavasana. Maybe something else. Just give your body anything else it needs tonight. And then for Shavasana, an offering I'll add is adding the bolster underneath your knees. If you would like some additional rest for your lower back and release, or just stretching yourself out long, maybe placing a blanket over yourself. Just get yourself as comfortable as you can possibly get. And we'll have 5 minutes of final pause before I guide us into a final breath. And we carry on into the rest of our day, rest of our evening, and into the next chapter. So get yourself comfortable. Find the rest that makes sense to you. And just be still. Soak it in. Let it be. And rest. One way to fully immerse yourself into Shavasana can sometimes be taking an inhale breath and imagining that you can inhale your favorite color into your body, filling yourself up through your nose, into your lungs, into your belly. And then as you exhale, that sense of peace that you're kind of imagining yourself inhaling guides itself down across our legs, to our knees, to our ankles, down into our feet, so that we're fully just enveloped in a sense of peace, glowing in our favorite color, like that little caterpillar toy from when I was a kid almost. And just rest. Let yourself be held. Let yourself be still. We typically bring us a quote to carry us through Shavasana and into the week ahead. I didn't find one specifically today, but I did find one that I've used several times before from Brene Brown that focuses a lot on something I struggle with, which is sitting with my emotions and not shaming myself for having them. And she says, what we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human. And so however that resonates with you, I encourage you to just let yourself be exactly as you are. Let yourself feel exactly what you feel. And let yourself return to this moment of peace as often as you need to. We don't need, in the midst of struggle, a shame for being human. And beginning to come back to your body and the sensations of it, coming back the same way that we relaxed. So noticing how your feet feel, maybe wiggling your toes, just twisting your ankles side to side, pointing and flexing your feet. Begin to become aware of your knees. Notice how straight or bent they are. Moving up to your hips, noticing what they feel like to be rested. If you have any supports underneath you, noticing what it feels like to have the tilt that you have in your hips and your pelvis. Taking an inhale breath and feeling what it feels like to fill up your lungs and your belly. And as you exhale, what does it feel like to let your heart sink into your chest, into your back against the mat? Beginning to feel into your arms, down to your wrists and your hands, and stretch them out to the side, above. Just waking yourself back up just briefly. And then when you're ready, if you would like to join in the seat, feel free to choose your favorite side or the side that feels like where you want to go. And curl your knees in, roll over to one side, and just be there before pressing yourself up to a seat, taking as long as you need. Knowing that the offer is there for one final guided breath together. And the option is also there to stay in Shavasana as long as you would like, and as long as your pup will allow. And as always, as we find ourselves in a final seat together, bring your hands anywhere that makes sense and feels intuitive. Maybe you want to place your hands over your heart. Just feel into this sense of holding your heart, taking an inhale breath, and then one final open mouth exhale. Resting, releasing, and realizing that this is always here for you. Thanking yourself for taking the time to offer this to yourself, to be with yourself, and choosing to spend it in community, knowing that community is just as important as solitude sometimes. It can often be more challenging. So I appreciate you choosing me as your Wednesday evening activity. And that is our class. So I'll be here as you'd like.
Thank you for taking a class with me, taking this time for you, and being a part of my online offering of free yin and restorative yoga to anyone who needs a break. As per usual, since this is YouTube, I'm here to ask you to subscribe, like, and share this video with anyone you think who might enjoy the same break that you just took. And if you would like to financially support these offerings, feel free to check out the description or visit my website, unbrokencircles.com, and you can see various ways to support me through Venmo, PayPal, or sharing the offerings that I put out with others who might need them. Thank you for taking this time. I love offering this to you, to anyone who needs it, and I'm grateful that you took this time to be with yourself, with me, and I hope to see you again. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions. Have a great day.